Alright, everybody. I have a few things I want to address in this, so please bear with me. First of all, I want to say that a lot of you guys have claimed to care about this situation based on your posts, based on your, vehemence over the last few years. So I expect those of you who have done these kinds of things in this group and outside this group about wanting justice, wanting recompense, to give me my time in this video. If you decide that you're going to turn this video off because too long didn't read, then I don't want to hear from you in the comments, alright? If you have been complaining about the Chris Cron thing and the fan strike back thing, but you're not even willing to participate in the solution or even listen to explanations about how certain solutions were arrived at, then I've got no use for you. Alright, I'm just being blunt. We don't have time anymore to dance around people's feelings. Okay? So, for those of you that feel like this is going to be a too long didn't read thing, just take a hike. I don't care. You're not part of the solution, and you're worthless to this at this point. You might as well just go eat fried chicken forever and whatever. There was one objective with this whole thing with the call-in show. The one objective was get customers in direct contact with Chris Cron. Get the questions answered. That was the one goal. And when I say that was the one goal, I mean that was the one goal when it was conceived. Alright? Because things are about to happen. Alright? All I wanted was people to be able to get answers about anything and everything to do with fan strike back products. If you look on my personal Facebook page at my original proposal to Chris Cron, it was the 13/Bantha. It's right there where you can read it. Chris Cron immediately accepted. He said, gladly accept. It was only immediately after that in typical Chris Cron fashion, he says one thing out in the world and then immediately starts backpedaling behind the scenes. Chris Cron is a disingenuous individual who does not acknowledge or take accountability for any of his actions. This is not something limited to the things that we've observed. This is also something that his former business partners have observed. This is why they walked away from him. Behind the scenes, right after he accepted the invite, because my initial proposal had been to take myself out of the equation. Because I already knew that one of the only ways to get him to the table was to try and provide him as neutral a footing as is possible. What I didn't realize was the fact that he was going to brazenly try and take neutral from being neutral to being everything in his own advantage. And it happened very rapidly. My buddy Thomas at Lio Convoy doesn't even collect Star Wars. He collects other lines and he's into other pop culture stuff, but he's not a Star Wars guy. And he does this kind of thing, holding people to task, doing call-in shows, things like that regularly. That's why I brought him in. Because he would be a neutral moderating thing while also, making sure that the truth would prevail. But unfortunately, Cron started making demands behind the scenes after accepting the proposal. So after he accepted the proposal, he started trying to change all the rules. And it was all or nothing for him, which we successfully fought him back on in several instances. And when I say we, Thomas was the one talking to him in the background. And then Thomas would come back and tell me, hey, I've gotten him into this position, but these might be deal breakers for you, so where are we so I can go back? Because I knew that if I even tried to talk to Kron, he'd be out. The first thing that Kron wanted was he wanted all chat and comments disabled. I'm trying to tell you all this in this way so that you understand that what you were seeing was not giving Kron the platform. If Kron had had his way, this entire thing would have been a commercial for Fan Strike Back. And the man is shameless in what he's willing to do to get that commercial. Because less than 10 minutes into that call-in show, he announced the update on his own on his own website, where he was calling me and my review lies and what was the exact wording? Deception and all kinds of stuff. He was basically saying I had no credibility, even though I'm a paying customer with the thing physically in my studio. And I have gone out and, defended this man in other instances about other subjects on camera on my channel. This is how shameless this man is. There he is, knowing he's going to go onto my platform for an opportunity to talk with his customers, where I have recused myself from the proceedings in order to make him feel more comfortable and get him there. And right before he does, he puts out a statement saying that my entire review was an outlier of lies and fabrications. That's what he put. That was the word he used, fabrications. Chris Kron makes Loki look honest. And at this point, before I go any further, I've noticed that a lot of you guys on here love to start your comments with, well, I don't have any skin in this game, or I've never bought a thing from Kron. I knew he was a sham from the beginning. Nobody cares about Captain Hindsight. Nobody cares about people who weren't actually there on the ground level when all this started, who like to claim that they always saw this coming. There's no way you could have seen all this coming because you weren't there. You've read about it and seen a bunch of shit about it since then, and now you act like you were Winston Churchill to everybody else's Neville Chamberlain. And that's not the way it worked, because you have to remember, at the time that this was being announced, and around the time that it was starting to get confusing in the background, but we weren't privy to said confusion, the 13 figures and the bantha we thought were also under the partial consultation of Chris Smith. Now, we have since learned that the bantha was supposed to be in the 13 were totally not. But at the time, we were not privy to said intel. We did not know any of this. So nobody was suspecting that this was a scam. Nobody was suspecting that this was ineptly mismanaged. Nobody was suspecting any of that. So all you guys who are like, I wasn't stupid enough to ever buy anything from him. I ain't got no skin in this game. Shut up. Nobody cares about your Captain Hindsight bullshit. Either be part of the solution or step off to the side. But don't sit there and act like you're smarter than everybody else. It helps nothing. So he was trying to eliminate, as part of this call-in show, he was trying to eliminate every option for people to comment. He didn't want chat enabled. He didn't want comments enabled. And we had to push back on him to make him understand that that would totally destroy the credibility of the call-in show. Which, by the way, he doesn't really give a shit about credibility, as you've seen. But he didn't want to completely lose the platform, the opportunity. He wanted to make a statement at the beginning of the show about how I had no credibility and about how and he kind of worked some of this into the final thing as you saw, but he wanted to make this long statement at the beginning of the show talking about how my review was garbage and blah, blah, blah. And Thomas just plain told him, you cannot go onto the channel that's offering you the invitation and trash the guy that's offering you the platform this way. He says, I won't allow that. Now, obviously, he slipped some of it in there later because he's Chris Cron. But we were pushing back on him on a lot of different points, pushing it to the middle so that this would actually happen. Because with every single caveat and ultimatum he threw up, it came with, if we don't get this, we walk. According to Chris Cron, and you can't trust anything he says, but according to Chris Cron, Kevin Sexton was ready to walk from the beginning. Kevin Sexton was completely convinced all of this was going to be a staged ambush. And by extension, Chris Cron, from the moment we would ask him questions about, okay, well, if we're going to be talking about the Bantha this way, and we're going to be talking about the 13, and that was when he said, I'm only going to address the Bantha. And Thomas said, well, there's a lot of questions about the 13. I'm only going to address questions about the Bantha and nothing else. Okay. You guys need to understand that we were trying to get something on the record. Something. And from everything that we got on the record last night, it was pretty damning. Even with the narrowing caveats that we kept pushing back on, like the walls of the trash compactor, we kept pushing back on him pressing in. One of the many things that Chris Cron kept talking about during these negotiations was defaulting to going down a mental rabbit hole about Chris Smith. Every time we tried to bring up issues about the delays of the product, the quality control issues with the product, and I love the fact that he's trying to imply that I'm trying to get it to fall over. I'm not. It's literally falling over right in front of your eyes. This is, as you saw in the call that I recorded and posted here. He acknowledged in that call that this was a poor example of the product. But he changed his tune on the call-in show last night and said everything I said and observed is a lie. And a fabrication. Because he has no integrity. But he also loved to go down the rabbit hole of blaming Chris Smith for not only this Bantha, but blaming Chris Smith for all kinds of things that have nothing to do with his products and product rollout. All Chris Cron wants to do is talk about how awful Chris Smith is, and how abusive Chris Smith is, and how Chris Smith's actions have been tantamount to threats, and how Chris Cron is a victim. And I'll tell you guys right away that Thomas pushed back on that immediately. Thomas did not for 1 second let Chris Cron go down that path in the negotiations to get to this call-in show. He told him, he said, you are making serious accusations without any receipts. There is nothing in this that has anything to do with the questions you will be asked about the Bantha, your product. So you cannot go there. And then Chris Cron said, well, I don't want to see Chris Smith in the comments, or I'm going to walk. He said, I will leave the call-in show. And he even made those implications known just about people being mean in the chat, because the moderators couldn't keep up with the mean comments in the chat for a good reason, because a lot of people are mad at Chris Cron. But you saw on the chat itself, on the call, that he was ready to bail over very little to next to nothing. Petulant child. And that is why Chris Smith and myself were not in the comments last night of the chat. Chris Smith tried to be, and he kept getting bounced out. And I was telling Chris Smith in the background, hey man, don't get mad at the mods here. They're Thomas's mods, and all of this is going to come out in this video today. It was one of the caveats we had to accede to in order to get him to even say anything. And yes, that is pathetic, but that is the reality. The man has a fixation on Chris Smith. Chris Smith lives rent-free in this man's head. He uses him as an excuse for everything he has done wrong. I wanted from the beginning anybody to be allowed in that chat. There were people I wanted to be able to call in. It was Chris Cron that said, we have to limit this to people with order numbers. And not just people with order numbers, but people only with order numbers about the Bantha. And that was a late in the game change. I very much wish that David Gray had gotten a chance to speak. I was angry for David Gray, and I know you're a member of this community, so I hope you're hearing me right now when I say that. I wanted you to have a chance to talk. Excuse me. But literally, Thomas knew from all the negotiations we've been doing in the background that if we had tried to force his hand in that moment to talk to David Gray about the 13, he and Kevin would have hung up the phone. And this isn't about trying to acquiesce to every single demand that Chris Cron had. It is a balancing act. It was a balancing act to get him to say something on audio, on the record. And it's why we were not happy with the fact, and there have been comments in this group to this effect. There were comments last night in the chat about this. It was incensing to see people imply that all of this was a staged show or a skit. That we were doing all of this to benefit Chris Cron and protect him. Do you think after the review I did, after the money I've paid, that I want to protect Chris Cron? Do you think that I would invite him onto my channel after this to protect him? Do you really think that? Or are you just effing stupid? Use your brain. This had to do with negotiating to get him to the table. And decisions made in real time are never perfect. And sometimes the decisions end up being very fluid. But some of you guys, one of you guys implied that every single caller was handpicked to the advantage of Chris Cron. Bullshit! The very first caller that got through, who was the only caller besides David Gray, and I wish David Gray had been allowed to talk, but unfortunately we knew that Chris Cron and Kevin Sexton would run if David Gray got a chance to talk, because David Gray hadn't ordered a Bantha. Again, a late-stage negotiating caveat. That first caller ripped him a new one, up and down. And he's on the record trying to gaslight his own paying customer by telling him that what he sees in his own product is not true. That is a damning, on-the-record testament about who Chris Cron is. And it's on audio for all time. And the only regret that I have on that score is that more of you didn't show up with your Bantha order numbers to talk to Chris Cron given this opportunity. I salute David Gray for trying to get on that call. I regret very much, and I don't mean regret in the sense that we didn't try. My initial proposal was to have everybody who's ever ordered anything from Chris Cron be allowed to talk. But again, things kept changing in the background. And all we were trying to do, it's like a scene in the movie where you're trying to trace a call, and you've got to keep that guy on the line for at least a minute in order for the trace to go through. All we were trying to do was keep Chris Cron on the phone. So yeah, there were some imperfect decisions that we were pissed that we had to make. But most of you guys didn't show up. You talk a good game back here and then you didn't show up. You want someone else to fight your battles for you, but you're not willing to pick up a sword and do some swinging yourself. That first individual and David Gray, they were there. That first individual did some good fighting, and David Gray, unfortunately, got shut out of the battlefield. Not through any want of Thomas or myself. I got Kevin Sexton on the record in private messages after Toylanta and after my review, stating that he regrets all of this and stating that the product is not what he wanted and stating that he wants out of Fan Strike Back but doesn't know how. Doesn't know how to get out. But in the background here, in the lead up to this call-in show, he was nothing but a craven. He was nothing but a cowardly, duplicitous shit stain. He has clearly decided that he is going to let his reputation ride or die with Chris Kron, which is a supremely stupid move given the damage that was done last night, even though most of you guys didn't show up. Imagine what could have happened if you guys had shown up with your Bantha order numbers and done what was necessary. We could have ended this last night. Even limited to the Bantha, we could have ended this last night. But that's the way it always works. There's a lot of loud people in the peanut gallery, but they'll never step forward and get on the stage. And I don't want to go so far as to call it cowardice, but I will call it laziness. Kevin Sexton has shown by his actions and words in this call last night, and from everything I've seen and known from him, that much like Chris Kron, he will say one thing in one place and say another thing in another place. Is it infuriating that he will sit there and say, if you don't like it, just don't buy it? And it's like, no, that's not the issue here, Kevin, because we were promised something that we were excited to buy. We've already lost our money to it, and now it's not what it was. This isn't about you being able to simply dismiss it as, well, if you didn't like it, you shouldn't have bought it. How can we know what something is going to be when it's promised to be one thing, but it's not ready yet? And then we lose our money on it. But that's who Kevin Sexton is as well. Kevin Sexton is a very self-absorbed individual. He is a arm-waving frontman that loves to talk about himself. He loves to talk about how he's super passionate about all these things that he does, his art and his sculpting and his time as a pro wrestler and his taekwondo. And even at the panel that he did at Toylanta, all he did was talk about himself. He wants to be a motivational speaker. He wants to inspire other people with his own personal story. It's pathetic. It's cringe, as the young people say. That's the reality. That's why he went off on that inspirational speech at the end of the call-in show last night, because that's who this guy is. And he thinks that he can just say words and people will just fall into his thrall, which they don't. Kevin Sexton said at the Toylanta thing that you gotta be brave enough to step up. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me make this as real for you as possible. You gotta be brave enough to step up to the plate and take a swing. And what he was saying by that is, I was brave enough to put myself out there, and I don't care if people say they don't like my stuff. And it's like, but you do care, because you tried to bail out on this call-in show a billion times before it ever got started, according to Chris Kron. And if Chris Kron said those things about you to us, and you didn't actually say those things, and I'm addressing you right now, Kevin Sexton, because I know that there are spies in Stan Solo who are sending this link to both of you. I know you're here. Chris Smith knows you're here. And that's why I don't care, because I got nothing to hide. Then maybe you need to have a conversation with Chris Cron, because Chris Cron said that you were the holdout over this call-in show, that you were the guy that was standing back and saying, well, I don't want to do this, I got concerns that I'm going to get ambushed. It's going to be an ambush! But at Toylanta, you were telling us how you were this guy that didn't care about that kind of criticism, and how you were this former pro wrestler that was the only guy brave enough to step into the ring with this really tall dude and get thrown around, and then you dust yourself off and get back in the ring for another go. You were fearless. You were courageous. It's not what you displayed in the run-up to this call-in, according to Chris Cron, who very well may have thrown you under the bus, because that's who he is. But you didn't help yourself last night on that call-in show, sir, by siding with Chris Cron and throwing customers under the bus and saying things like, if you don't like it, don't buy it. They already bought it before they knew what you were going to deliver. How do they know what they are going to like until it actually shows up and it's garbage? And then you're not even offering refunds for it. You are now behind a guy who won't even offer refunds for it. I'm simply pointing out to all of you here that a lot went down to try and get them on that show. And I don't regret any of the work that we did to try and get something on the record. Wish of wishes. I wish that he had just accepted my original proposal, because that's what somebody with integrity does. He did accept it in public, but then in private he wanted to change the whole game. When I did a debate a few months ago with a YouTuber that was giving me a lot of grief, a public live debate, the hosting channel asked me, are there any rules that you want to set in place, or is there anything that you're concerned about, or anything you want us to deal with? They were basically asking me if I had any caveats. And I said, no, I have no caveats. Because I didn't have anything to hide. I didn't have anything I had to suppress. I didn't have anything aside from, I just want to talk to this guy about his bullshit. Now, as much as I don't like this individual, as much as I obviously had a lot of differences with this person, to this individual's credit, and it pains me to say those words, but I will in the context of Chris Cron, to this individual's credit, as duplicitous and manipulative as he was in the debate itself, when they asked him the same question, he had no preconceived demands. He had no demands to appear. He had nothing that he wanted them to change as far as that was concerned. So, as much as I don't like the guy, and as frustrating as he is in a live debate setting, because he has no, scruples, he didn't put any guardrails around it to protect himself before he went in. I can't say the same of Chris Cron and Kevin Sexton. They drove a very frustrating bargain. And it took a lot for us to get them to the middle. And shockingly, I have to tell you that what you saw last night, that was the middle. I mean, like I said, the guy literally uploaded a anti-retroblasting statement after he'd already started the show. And he knew what he was doing. That's some dirty shit. But did we turn the cameras off? Did we hang up the call? No, we just kept going. Because we know that what he's saying is garbage, and we know what he's doing, and you guys know what he's doing. I'm a paying customer. I paid for mine. I know that it's not worth a damn. there and try and call me a liar and say that I'm misrepresenting everything deliberately. He can say everything he wants, but the truth is there. And he knows that my review is not an outlier. He knows that every other review that's been done is from a fan strike back employee. He knows it. There were former business partners of Chris Cron that wanted to be on that call. I mean, call in. Unfortunately, because of the caveats he threw about Chris Smith, I won't even let Chris Smith be in the chat or I'll walk. We knew that we weren't going to be able to allow anybody to speak to him. If the man has nothing to hide and the man is as transparent as he claims to be, he wouldn't have to worry about anybody, order, number, or not, talking to him. But he has everything to worry about because he has lied and lied and lied. And now he and Kevin Sexton have both committed to the lies. And now it's ride and die. Fan Strike Back is finished. It's just a matter of time. It would have been a lot sooner if more of you guys had stepped up. But most people on the internet are just empty keyboard warriors. And I've learned that from 10 years on YouTube. That's my whole point. Most of you guys end up being worthless. Not the David Grays, not the first gentleman. There's always a few that have some balls. But most of you guys, you just want to bitch in the comments. And or talk about how you're so much smarter than everybody else and have no skin in the game. But I want to throw in my 2 cents. You guys are next to worthless too. Because you're not part of the solution either. You're just trying to puff up your chest like you're smarter than everybody. And you're not. You're just Captain Hindsight. You can probably hear my stomach rumbling right now. I'm hungry. I gotta go get some lunch. I don't really have that much else to say about this, but I want you guys to understand how much work went into trying to make this happen. And despite most of you being no-shows and not taking time out of your day to come do this, what needed to be seen was shown in stark reality. Could have been better if more of you guys had shown up. Even with his demands, it could have been better. But all of his demands only prove what we, have been trying to get on the record forever. That Chris Cron is a liar, and he has a lot to hide, and he accepts no accountability for anything that has occurred. And this is the beginning of the end, and it took people who paid for it to bring it to the surface. I hope that gives you guys some perspective into what went on to try and make that call-in happen. And I hope that will give you guys pause in the very near future from criticizing the effort that we went to. Because right now, any of you guys that are criticizing our efforts are criticizing it with nothing to show on the other side. You guys have done nothing. It takes a pretty brazen asshole who has done nothing to criticize the efforts of someone else. I salute you, David Gray. I salute the first gentleman that was on the call. Really want to thank Thomas, want to thank Chris Smith for his understanding. Chris Smith he's been bulletproof for 2 years trying to resolve these issues. And I always assured Chris Smith in the background, I am doing my best, to resolve these issues as well. I am not sitting around, trying to avoid the situation. I was not in the background trying to play both sides of the fence against the middle. But it does take a certain amount of common sense and discerning instinct to know that you gotta keep the other person on the phone. You're gonna have to swallow some of the anger you want to throw out there. if you want to keep a line of communication open. Now, as of this moment, that line of communication for me between me and Chris Cron is now officially closed. These were my plays, and I played them to the best of my ability. They are now closed, but I was able to keep Chris Cron talking for 2 years. Because I didn't do this on a keyboard and throw aspersions at him. I waited until the end game. Criticize it all you want, but if this is all you've done, and you haven't done it to Chris Cron, I kept Chris Cron on the phone for 2.5 years. What did you do? I've got him on the record twice, both in the recorded call and on this. He can't run from things he's now said outright. He can subtly change wording on websites, and people can catch it, but then he's like, oh. He can't change what he said. He can brazenly, like he did with that customer, just deny, but that's just going to make him look worse. But yeah, I played my hand, and I think I've done a lot more with my hand than a lot of my critics have achieved or accomplished. And Chris Smith is owed your thanks as well. Because Chris Smith, like I said in that one post a few days ago, yeah, Chris Smith and I have had our disagreements in the past about various things. But it was always misunderstanding, and it always got worked out. And yeah, Chris Smith is a hot-headed guy. But you know what? Like I told Chris Cron when he was going off about Chris Smith on that phone call I had with him back in November, once again, as I said, Chris Cron loves to redirect to Chris Smith. When you ask him a question, he redirects to how Chris Smith is this horrible guy. And I told Chris Cron, I said, what does any of this have to do with your business? I said, Chris, you gotta forget Chris Smith. I said, because right now, he's delivering. Regardless of if a person thinks he's hot-headed, or if a person thinks he cusses too much, or whatever. Chris Smith has never stolen money from a customer, made a customer wait 2 years, or deliver shitty products after being handed that money. He's always delivered exactly what he promised. And I told Chris Cron that. And I said, and right now, you're trying to tell everybody that Chris Smith is a criminal while you're sitting back 2 years late and delivering garbage. Eventually, we're going to understand, and I said this at the time, I said this to him at the time, it's obvious now, but at the time I told him this back in November, I said, eventually, Chris, it's going to make you start looking like a criminal because the optics are so janky. People are going to go, how can the guy who's not delivering after taking people's money call the other guy a criminal who is delivering and everybody's universally happy with his products? You guys owe Chris Smith a lot. A lot. And you can start by not giving him lip all the time. I want to make something clear. I am not blaming any of you guys for what Chris Cron has done. You guys didn't steal money from anyone. You guys didn't make crappy products. You guys didn't lie to anybody. They're two separate issues. Chris Cron is the main issue. But some of you guys, your instincts and your behavior in the comments here are terrible. You guys are very self-important. And you think you're smarter than everybody else, but you haven't done shit. You haven't done anything. You haven't done anything to earn the reputation you've given yourself. Not in this community. Maybe out in your real life world, you know, your localized world, because all this is real life. But in the world where you're physically interacting with other humans, maybe you're hot shit. But that doesn't mean anything here. And I know I'm coming down hard on you guys, but if you're not gonna step up and do what's necessary, then you really shouldn't be talking a good game. or not. If you're a paying customer that's not willing to play the long game and do what's necessary and fight the good fight, then what are you worth? My job is to get the word out. My job is to pay for the stuff like every other collector in the toy aisle and then get the word out. Yeah, Chris Cron and I were friendly for a long time because I thought better of the man. But I will never let a friendship or nepotism get in the way of someone I know is lying to me and hundreds of other people. And I threw that friendship into an incinerator over this. Because this is junk, and it was the right thing to do. I can't sleep at night knowing that I've tried to protect somebody who's lying. But you guys now, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to, but you do have an opportunity to act and be better in these comments toward Chris Smith and others. That's all I gotta say. We did our very best. We did our damnedest with this call-in show. Chris Cron and Kevin Sexton are massive manipulators. They are liars and they have victim complexes. They are riding or dying on Fans Strike Back and their actions. Both of them have egos. They express those egos in different ways, but both of them are very much wrapped up in I can't be blamed because I'm awesome. So it took a lot to get this call-in show to happen. But it happened. And it didn't happen because of anything you guys did. And that's why I don't regret even the, 40% that we were able to pull out of what we hoped was a 100% situation. What's the old phrase? You aim for the stars and you land on the moon? Or is it you aim for the moon and you land in the stars? I can't remember. Alright. I'm going to get back to my day. I hope this was eye-opening for you. I hope it's eye-opening for all the Fan Strike Back spies as well. Chris Cron and Kevin Sexton, if you're listening, I stand by everything I've said in this video. You guys have made a pathetic show of yourselves, and you should be ashamed. You know what you've done and not done, and you will answer for it in terms of your reputations and the future of Fan Strike Back, which has no future. So, yeah. To Chris Smith, to David Gray, and the man that called first. Always have your backs. Always have your backs. Alright, I'm out.